I died at the ripe age of 47, right there in my bed. Heart attack, they said. Dead for nearly 10 minutes. My daughter's the one who found me. We've kept one of those AEDs in the house ever since the heart doctor told me I was at 2 times the risk of a heart attack than the average person due to my type 2 diabetes. They called me a miracle, dead 10 minutes on the dot, and here I am telling you about it. But honestly, it wasn't a miracle to me. I wish I never came back. I was watching the news when it happened. My left arm started hurting, my head was splitting, and my chest felt like it was being squeezed to its limits. Before I could get out of bed, I was born again. Would you believe that? We've all heard of the light at the end of the tunnel story. Yeah, that's about right. I saw the light, and when I reached that light, someone else's life started flashing before my eyes. Faint little memories of a young boy passing quickly through time, starting no older than 1, then 2, then 3, and eventually I was the young boy, no older than 5. Funny thing was, I didn't remember the life I lived before, but I remember the life I lived as that little boy. I had new parents, siblings, which was much different than the only child life I lived before, and even a Great Dane, something my past life mother would have never said yes to having. Big dogs cause big problems, she would say. We had this wonderful tire swing out back connected to the biggest oak tree I'd ever seen in my life. My new siblings and I would take turns pushing each other on the swing, laughing, screaming, all the good things you'd ever want in your childhood, all the things I didn't have growing up. Looking back, I wish it didn't end how it did. I was happy then. One day on the tire swing, we decided to see who could climb the oak tree the highest. I went first. I wish I didn't. I'd gotten to the first branch, nearly ripping my pants lifting myself up onto it. I looked back down and waved to my siblings. "I'm not done yet," I yelled down. I was making my way to the second big branch when a smaller one I was using as a rest for my foot broke from under me. I hit the first branch on the way down, then hit head first on the ground, probably a good 30 feet from where I fell. Then I woke up. My daughter brought me back to life. My wife was crying absurdly. I should have been happier about it all, but I wasn't. Now I go to these conferences for people who've had NDEs, near-death experiences, looking for answers to what I went through. Was it real? Is there a heaven or a hell? Or do we all just get reincarnated? Why did I even come back to this life after that one? I have so many questions like all the others I've talked to, and so little answers. But we all agree on one thing. Life is a mystery. I used to be in a bike club. The club was the Devil's Angels, around 40 of us in all, just a bunch of good old boys who share the same passion for riding the endless road and Miller Lite. There's no better feeling than throwing on your vest with the boys and starting the hogs, the smell of the exhaust in the air, and nothing but the road in front of you. Unfortunately, last fall was the last time I'll ever ride again, yet alone walk. I can't even look at a bike anymore. Not because of what had happened that caused me to lose my ability to go to the bathroom on my own, more so what I saw after my life flashed before my eyes. I was riding down Interstate 90 towards Wyoming on our cross-country trip to Northern California that we do once every 10 years. We'd hit a few bars along the way, sweet-talk some ladies here and there to come back to our motel for a fun night a couple times, the usual. It had been raining pretty hard after we'd just left the Super 8 the morning I died. Sweating bullets from the sky would be a better way to describe it. I was going about 85 in an 80-mile-an-hour stretch of interstate, so I wouldn't say I was going felony fast. As I was switching lanes to the fast lane, I must have either hit something on the road or lost traction, because my entire bike started shaking. Within seconds, my bike veered off towards the median wall that separated both sides of traffic. I hit the wall so hard it pretty much crushed my entire lower section of my body in just a brief moment. I couldn't feel anything. I could only wonder if what was coming next was going to kill me or spare me. Pretty weird how that works. After I hit the wall, I flung in a cartwheel fashion. From what I was told, might have been a good 10 feet off the ground. When I landed, I struck my head. Luckily, I was wearing a helmet, but apparently that wasn't enough to stop it from flatlining me. I remember seeing gray. Everything seemed blurry at first, like all the color and light was having to focus back in slowly. Some people say death is like seeing a light off in the distance that gets closer and closer, or maybe you go towards it. I'm not sure. I just know mine wasn't like that at all. Mine was terrifying. As the color came back, everything started shifting to red. I was in a red room facing a wall. Was I in the hospital? No. No IVs, no monitors, none of the boys or my loved ones by my side waiting for me to gain consciousness. Just a wall. I tried to get a sense of where I was at, and I turned. 3 strange-looking beings stood towering over me. No eyes. Frayed and disturbed locks of hair, if that's what you could call it. Mouths wide open. I didn't speak. How could I? Where was I? One of them spoke, but his mouth didn't move. "Follow us," it said. I didn't have a choice. In an instant, we were flying over clouds. Thunder and lightning consumed the sky below us. They were with me up there, and one of them pointed down. Then we descended below the clouds, and what was under those clouds, I can't unsee. Pits of lava and fire, people screaming, begging to be spared. Monsters laughing at the pain and agony they were causing. Then it clicked. I was going to be among these lost souls. I pleaded with the beings. They said nothing. Suddenly I was falling towards the pits. The tears from my eyes dried up from the heat coming from below me. From that eternal place of damnation, the place I was about to call home forever. Then a light. I heard yelling and screaming. No, not from below in those pits of fire, but from a medic. "I've got a heartbeat. He's conscious. Get him in the ambulance." I opened my eyes. I was alive. I'll spare you the details of the ambulance ride, the hospital visit, and all the rest. All I can say is I'm changed. I'll never walk again, but I'm more aware of the power of my choices than I have ever been. Do you believe in the afterlife? I didn't. Not until my youngest son nearly lost his life in a car accident. I'm a 32-year-old mother of 2 sweet boys, 9, Ash, and 4, Mason. Their father isn't in the picture, not since Mason was born. I've always tried my best to make amends with the divorce and not let it affect my children's lives, but it can be so hard, especially after the accident. I expected something like this to, at the very, very least, warrant a call to check in on how his son was doing. I later found out why. Mason was on life support. The SUV struck him going 40, and when I told the doctors what had happened, they told me they were surprised he was even alive when he arrived. I cried and cried when they took him to the ICU. "Please, God, don't take my baby." Day 3 in the ICU, and his body still wasn't ready to take over for life support. The doctors figured he'd be stabilized by that point, but he wasn't. Then the worst happened. Mason went into cardiac arrest. I yelled for the doctors as his heart monitor was ringing off the hook. They tried to resuscitate him, but it wasn't enough. He flatlined. I remember the doctor recording the time of death. I was screaming and yelling at the top of my lungs, but that didn't change anything. He was gone. I sat by the bedside. I was given a moment to be with him until I was ready to say goodbye. All of a sudden, his heartbeat picks up on the monitor. I'm sitting here thinking he's gone forever, but I guess God answered my prayer. The doctor said they've never seen a double miracle, but none of us were ready for the third. A day after Mason went into cardiac arrest and came back, he opened his eyes. It was 3 a.m. just about, and I was asleep in a chair with a hospital blanket over me. I woke up to Mason crying for me, and I was crying for him. I told him he scared me to death, and that I'd never leave his side again. He told me he saw his father in heaven. I didn't believe it until he started to describe him. Let me remind you, Mason has never met his father, so the chances he could describe him perfectly the way he did is impossible, unless what he was saying was true. The doctors eventually let us leave a few days later. When we got back home, I tried calling their father out of pure anger, to let him know how much of a terrible person he was for not being there when his son needed him most. Nobody picked up the other end of the phone. I tried a few more times and got voicemail every time. I went on Facebook to message him. When I looked up his profile, all I saw was obituaries with his face on it. He really was dead, and Mason met him.